I never imagined a simple moment, just my disabled mom enjoying a warm afternoon at the community pool, would erupt into the kind of chaos that would change our entire relationship with the HOA. But that day, everything exploded the moment she smiled. Yes, smiled. And according to Karen, the self-appointed pool enforcer, my mom's happiness was apparently a noise violation. It began with the sun flashing off the water and my mom gently floating near the shallow end, her wheelchair parked beside me. She had been having a good day. Her pain was low, her breathing steady, and when she let out a soft, joyful laugh, it felt like a small miracle. But Karen, perched on her lifeguard-style chair, even though she wasn't authorized to be one, whipped her head around as if she had heard an earthquake instead of a giggle. She marched over, visor tilted like a police badge, clipboard clutched dramatically, and announced, "Excuse me, but I'm issuing a formal warning. That noise is disruptive to other residents." I stared at her, trying to process if she was being serious or performing for some invisible HOA camera. My mom blinked, confused but calm, and asked, "Are you talking about my smile?" Karen narrowed her eyes as if she had caught a criminal. "Yes, that sound. It's too loud. This is a peaceful community." Her voice echoed across the pool deck with more volume than anything my mom had produced all day. I tried to reason with her, explaining that my mom's medical condition made small moments of joy rare and precious. But Karen was unmoved. She scribbled something on her clipboard and ripped the paper off with theatrical flair. "Next time," she warned, "this will be a fine." I thought she was bluffing. No HOA could possibly enforce something this ridiculous. No rulebook could ever include something as absurd as excessive smiling. But as we packed up to leave, Karen shouted after us, "Make sure she keeps it down next time." That was when I realized something dangerous. Karen wasn't following rules. She was inventing them. And the worst part, we were about to find out just how far she was willing to go to make her imaginary rulebook real. What I didn't know then was that this was only the opening shot in a long, exhausting battle. As we walked home, my mom tried to play it off with a quiet shrug, but I could still see the hurt. She had survived surgeries and constant discomfort. Yet somehow, a stranger with a clipboard had stolen a moment of joy. I made a promise that day. I wouldn't let anyone take her happiness again, truly. The next morning, I opened our mailbox expecting bills, junk flyers, maybe a delivery slip, but instead, I found a bright yellow HOA violation envelope staring back at me like a warning sign. I tore it open, still half asleep, and froze. My heart dropped. $250 a fine. Noise disruption, excessive smiling at community pool. For a moment, I honestly thought it was a prank. The note had Karen's perfectly sharp handwriting, each letter carved into the page with unnecessary aggression. Under the violation details, she had written, "Final warning. Future disturbances will result in escalating penalties." I walked inside and showed the paper to my mom. She frowned gently, rubbing her temples. "Honey, I didn't even make noise." I nodded. "I know. But Karen doesn't care. She just wants control." My mom sighed, her shoulders slumping. She already fought her body. Every day, this was just another weight added to her chest. I could see how it drained her, not because of the money, but because someone decided her happiness was a problem. I grabbed my phone, shaking with anger, and marched to the HOA office. When I walked in, Karen was conveniently stationed at the desk, acting like she owned the place. She didn't even look surprised to see me. In fact, she smirked, as if she had been waiting. I held up the fine. "Explain this." She tapped her fingers together. "It's simple. Your mother made a loud, disruptive sound while at the community pool. The noise startled other residents." I looked around. The office was empty. "What residents?" There was no one else there. Karen shrugged. "Disturbance is subjective. That's not how rules work," I snapped. She spun her monitor toward herself, clicking dramatically. "Actually, the HOA guidelines allow for penalties when behavior disturbs the peace." "A smile isn't behavior that disturbs the peace," I shot back. Karen leaned in, lowering her voice but sharpening her tone. "Your mother's condition doesn't exempt her from community expectations. Everyone must follow the rules." That did it. My anger flared, but I forced myself to stay calm. "Show me the rule. The exact line." She clicked around again, scrolling, pretending to search, but the hesitation gave her away. There was no rule. She was abusing power, fabricating offenses, and doing it proudly. When she realized I wasn't leaving, she snapped, "You have 7 days to pay. If not, additional actions will be taken. Trust me, you don't want that." I left the office shaking, both furious and determined. Karen had crossed a line, and I wasn't about to let her push my mom any further. I spent the next 2 days gathering every piece of information I could. If Karen wanted to wield HOA rules like weapons, Then I needed to learn the rulebook better than she ever had. I printed the entire document, highlighted every line that mentioned noise, disturbance, conduct, and even pool etiquette. Nothing, absolutely nothing, mentioned anything remotely close to excessive smiling. But before I confronted her again, something unexpected happened. On the third morning, while my mom was resting in her recliner, I stepped outside to get some air and found two neighbors waiting at the bottom of our driveway. They looked nervous, glancing around as if Karen might jump out from behind a hedge. One was Mrs. Delgado from across the street. The other, a young dad named Brian, who lived near the pool. "Is it true?" Mrs. Delgado asked quietly. "Did Karen really fine your mother for smiling?" I nodded, holding up the paperwork. "It's real." Brian blew out a breath. "I knew it. She's been escalating. Last month she tried to fine my kid for wet footprints near the pool. And yesterday she threatened to write me up because my dog blinked at her." I blinked. "Your dog blinked?" He nodded. Apparently it was disrespectful. We all shared a baffled, exhausted silence. Then Mrs. Delgado stepped closer. "Listen, people are getting tired. She's making rules that don't exist. She bullies anyone who doesn't fit her picture of the perfect community." I asked, "Why hasn't anyone reported her to the HOA board?" Brian shook his head. "Because Karen practically is the board. The others avoid conflict. She shows up early, volunteers for everything, pushes everyone else aside. She controls half the votes." My stomach tightened. It made everything make sense. Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She had turned herself into the ruler. But here's where things changed. Word spread. By evening, 2 more neighbors knocked. Then 3, then 5. Stories poured out like water bursting from a cracked pipe. Stories of fake fines, intimidation, and petty harassment. People who had stayed silent, out of fear, finally felt safe to speak because they knew someone else was standing up. And that someone apparently was me. We met in my living room that night. A dozen residents huddled around my coffee table, planning like rebels plotting against a dictator. My mom watched from her recliner, touched but overwhelmed. "We can fight this," I said. "We can stop her." But just as we were beginning to form a real strategy, there was a heavy bang at the door, loud enough to rattle the window. Everyone froze, and from the other side, a cold voice called out, "I know you're in there. We need to talk." It was Karen. The room went silent as Karen's knuckles struck the door again, harder this time. Every neighbor in my living room stiffened, like they'd been caught committing a crime. Even though all we were doing was talking, I took a long breath, steadied myself, and opened the door, just enough to see her standing there, with her visor angled like a battle helmet and that infamous clipboard tucked under her arm. "We need to discuss your mother's outstanding fine," she said, her tone dripping with manufactured authority. "And whatever. Gathering you're hosting. Unapproved assemblies violate HOA protocol." Behind me, someone whispered, "There's no rule about gatherings." Karen's eyes darted past me. "Who said that?" I stepped fully into the doorway, blocking her view. "Karen, the neighbors and I have reviewed the entire rulebook. There is no such thing as a smiling noise violation. This fine is invalid." She tightened her jaw. "I interpret the rules for the community's safety." "No," I said firmly. "You invent rules to control people. And it ends now." Her expression twisted, frustration leaking through her perfectly practiced posture. "If you refuse to cooperate, I'll escalate this to the board. And trust me, they'll side with me." That was her mistake. One by one, the neighbors stepped into the doorway behind me. Brian, Mrs. Delgado, the young couple from the corner, even Mr. Patel, who rarely spoke to anyone. 12 people united behind me, staring her down. Brian crossed his arms. "We're the board too, Karen. The community has a voice." Mrs. Delgado lifted a folder. "We're submitting a formal complaint. With signatures." Karen's composure wavered. For the first time, she didn't look confident. She looked cornered. I held up the fine and said, "This ends today. Either you retract this bogus citation and step down from enforcing rules you made up, or we take this to the HOA council, the city, and the district oversight committee." Her face paled. She hadn't expected a united front. She hadn't expected resistance at all. After a long, tight silence, she snatched the fine from my hand, crumpled it and muttered, "Consider it dismissed." But before she turned to leave, something unexpected happened. My mom, who had been quietly listening from her recliner, rolled forward in her wheelchair, rested her hands in her lap, and simply smiled, soft, warm, peaceful. Karen stared at her. That one gentle expression carried more strength than any shouting match. My mom said lovingly, "Sometimes kindness makes the loudest noise." The room filled with quiet laughter, not loud, not disruptive, just human. Karen walked away without another word. From that day forward, no one ever received another fake fine. the neighbors began reclaiming the community from fear. And my mom? She smiled at the pool every day, louder than ever. Can you believe Karen actually fined my mom for smiling? Comment below what you would do if this happened to your family. Don't forget to like if you think Karen went way too far, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next crazy HOA story.